Tara Averill with Fiona Averill, my daughter. This is Samia Khan we're talking to today. I told Fiona about half an hour ago what was going on, and she was like, wait a second. She interviewed Barack Obama. What? Huh? Oprah? So, and Fiona's at Northeastern studying journalism and media and film and all this stuff. So I figured we're going to have a two-part thing here where Fiona has a lot of questions to ask you about how you got where you are and how you got those interviews and all that. But then, I want to talk a lot about healing, plant medicine, your journey in that area, and as it relates to recovery.
No, I was just wondering what advisor at Northeastern you're like in contacts with. Like, is it like an actual working advisor?
He is Nikos Passas, Dr. Nikos Passas, and he's a professor of criminology.
Oh, okay.
Lots of other things. And he worked on the case that I'm investigating for like decades. And so he's a subject of my movie. He started out as an academic advisor, and then I was like, let's get you on camera. And he was more than willing, more than gracious, and so knowledgeable. And so
I've actually heard about him a lot in the journalism school because a lot of students interview him for like court pieces and like stuff like that. He's spoken about very highly within the faculty there.
He's the best. I spent 3 days with him a year ago. I can't believe it was a year ago. I filmed with him, but I just got the ongoing process, so I'll be seeing him again. So I actually filmed on your campus. I filmed the little logo.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Silly question from the uneducated over here. Do you need a advisor of that sort on a film like that?
Yeah. So the film, first I'll tell you about the film because it will inform each other. So it's my first feature and it's a documentary. And it's a film that is an investigation into the world's largest financial and banking crisis. And that is a crisis that took down the fourth largest bank in the world. It put a bunch of people in jail and it exposed the drug cartels. It's called BCCI. It happened in the early 90s, except that what was called a criminal organization in the West was the first bank ever to be a global bank from the global South, be funded from the Muslim world and the Middle East. And my father was one of its first 10 employees, founders, executives. So when I was 9 years old, we go out for lunch in London, having a nice lunch, open the papers, and it's like ringleaders of the world's largest criminal organization. And we're like, wait, what? And there's my father's picture in it. And here he is, an executive of a bank. We had lived in Oman, we had lived in Kuwait, China, all over the world doing banking on, frontier banking in the global South. And somehow this bank was accused of everything that you could ever think of banks being accused of: money laundering, supporting criminal organizations. The laundry list was long.
Whoa.
So we went to Karachi literally the next day. A bunch of people that had worked for the bank who were in top leadership, who were executives that were related. Some were related to us. Some had just become family over the years. They were jailed in prison. Some of them died in prison. And so it was just kind of the scarlet letter that we lived with, where in Pakistan and in the global South, everyone was always like, oh, it was so unjust. It was, a complete Western conspiracy. And everyone in the West was like, oh, you guys always think it's a Western conspiracy. And then, of course, in 2008, another massive banking crisis happened, in which the banks were accused of laundering billions, supporting many, many criminal organizations. And they were all bailed out. No one was jailed.
And you were not, and your father was not bailed out, and his people were not bailed.
They were not bailed out. And so I just started wondering.
So this does us. So when you're 9 years old, family, panic, shame, embarrassment, feeling unjustly
betrayal.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? How did this happen? We summered in London, and now the British banking authority is saying that we're criminals. Like, what?
Wait, so did you grow up in London or did you grow up like all over?
I grew up all over. I summered in London. It was that life, and we were the first of our kind. We were the first people from the global South to really summer in London. We brought, how you see Kuwaitis and folks from Dubai and the Middle East shopping in London now. Those were my father's clients, and that was bringing them there. That was, doing the personal banking, the sheikhs and everyone who was there. So it was a real betrayal and a real surprise and a shock. but it was never taken seriously that there might have been another story. And it
Yeah.
never has been taken seriously. Is there another story in here somewhere?
And was it like a stark difference, like before and after this event of like your life and like everything?
Oh my God, the starkest, because we moved to Pakistan. No one would, a lot of people who were young in the bank, they got jobs, but my father was in his 50s. One, that's hard anyway. And two, having this stigma of having been part of BCCI. So that was, led him down a whole journey. And then my mother too, who had never they both were born in India, moved to Pakistan after partition, started their lives over again with this hope, and had never lived in Pakistan though, really, had lived all over the world. And now, back in Pakistan, trying to figure out what had happened. So she died shortly thereafter.
Your mother died shortly thereafter.
Yeah. Yeah, just a few years later she died. And so it was very traumatic. It was traumatic for all of them because they were like, why, they knew. Listen, when you're a bunch of bankers, just like in your industry, Tara, and my industry, when you're all doing something new, right? So I have people on camera who are like, yeah, so we'd all be in Venezuela, the guys from Citibank, the guys from Wells Fargo, and the guys from BCCI, and we're all doing the same thing. We're all doing exactly the same thing. Why us?
Yeah.
Why us? And then, of course, it comes to pass as I've been looking into it, the relationship between the bank and CIA and intelligence offices all over the world and the important role that they played in facilitating those transactions. Who goes down and who stay up when world politics change.
Right.
When power gets to shift hands. You follow the money, you follow power, you understand how the world really works.
Yes.
So the movie's just about how the world really works. No big deal. So I needed an academic to help me parse out, like, how am I going to tell this story? And what am I going to do? And what are the parts of it? And what do we focus on? Because no one wants to hear silly bank things. We want the intrigue.
Right.
Right.
So as like a journalist student, we're always talking about, I feel like you're so close to the story and this narrative. Do you think that makes you more equipped to tell it? Or is there challenges with being your dad was like part of this thing that you're like now like going deep into? Like, how is that experience?
Yeah, it's really been personally very difficult because it opens a lot of old wounds. So there's that part of it. But, the question that you're, I think, kind of circling is one of objectivity as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just take issue with objectivity, like, punto, like, I don't think that there is objectivity in any case. Like, we all come from a certain background, we all have beliefs, all of that, and if there was objectivity, then you wouldn't have had a cover of Time magazine calling the bank the sleaziest bank in the world. That's not objectivity.
100%. Yeah.
The allegations were not thoroughly investigated. John Kerry's allegations were not proven all the way through. So what is objectivity? Like, I take it for fact probably that these bankers did some crazy shit that was not above board. Because, like, vultures, right? Bankers.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
capital vultures.
Yeah, they're
The
chasing
question
the
is,
bottom
why
line.
do they get
Yeah.
imprisoned, shut down, assets stolen?
And not the other guys.
Yeah, that's it.
Did this send your parents more right-leaning or left-leaning in their politics?
No, they've always been progressive. They've always been, but we have a different definition of that than I don't know if we go right, left, what.
Are they practicing Muslims, your parents? Were they?
My mother was. Yeah, my mother was. My father's not. And I think that it has always been assumed that the West is not friendly to either the global South or the Muslim world. But I think there was this idea that they had, especially my father, that like we were included and we belonged. And so that slap in the face of no, that's not true. There's circles you can't belong in. I think that was really sad for him.
Do you think progressive, as defined by people like your parents of that era from the global South, which is a new term for me that you taught me, by the way. I didn't know the global South meant India, Asia. I didn't. Is that dumb? Is that
No.
like
Maybe I just went to like liberal Brooklyn schools my whole life. And so like they have, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up that way. Like, grow up like India, know.
They used to call it the third world, right? And now it's the global South.
No idea, by the way, until like last week. But what was I going to say? So do you think like progressive there means Western? Actually, there's a conflation between Western and progressive there.
No,
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Curious.
No. I think progressive means for freedoms, for liberty, and for, accepting and thinking and believing that we cannot learn the truth from one source. That's very highly valued. Right now people are freaking out about the New York Times being biased. And we're kind of like, yes, welcome.
It
Yeah.
is right. I grew up really believing that when Peter Jennings said on ABC News said what was up, I was like, okay, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And I am sad that there's not at least the illusion of a bastion of this is a fact. And I think our kids, God only know. I mean, I don't even, Fiona, how do you guys even decide what's true or not true in the world
Yeah.
we live in with social media?
I don't know. I feel like it's hard for me to answer that because it's my major is to do that. And we talk a lot about engagement in my classes because young people, it's hard to get them engaged, blah, blah, story we've heard a million times. So I feel like before that knowledge, I was just everything's fake because that's what everyone says. But then after that, it's you have the power. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has the internet. Not everyone, but a lot of people have the internet and the phone. And if you have the will to find the truth, you can find it. But I think that it's hard when you're not in a space where that narrative is available to you. So many people don't go to schools that talk about that kind of stuff and don't study it. So it's really hard. I think I'm the exception, not the rule for my generation. And I mean, everyone's getting their news off TikTok, point blank period. That's not fake. 100% they are. So people that aren't journalism majors, I think that it's harder for them to overcome that obstacle for sure. I've experienced firsthand someone getting fucked off of a TikTok rabbit hole. My ex-boyfriend, when we met, was totally normal, and he completely got Andrew Tated in our relationship, went so down that route in TikTok, and was such a weirdo. And I literally saw it happen. And he would say the craziest stuff that I never thought that someone would say. But then he came out of it. So people can come out of it.
Okay.
Let me make a perfect segue from this into medicine, which is that I saw a documentary recently, Mushrooms for Music by East Forest. So beautiful musician. You guys should see it if you like. And he had interviewed an indigenous ceremony holder. And apologies that I cannot remember her name. But he asked the question, do you think in today's day and age we can have healing, self-actualization, etc., without psychedelics? And she said no. And she said, but the reason is that the rate of acceleration of destruction on our planet, that's unique. But it's compounded by the rate at which we are receiving images, information. It's actually our nervous systems cannot handle it.
This
It
is
is just
so interesting. So the
nothing
old
our nervous
model of I'm going to go
system.
to therapy and talk about my parents, and I'm going to do some basic stuff. If you're truly trying to evolve or
Yeah.
grow, change, alchemize a low condition into a higher frequency, right? It seems like we need a lot of heavy lifting tools.
We need a lot of expansion. We need those moments that we can keep returning to, that go into, that heal the concentric circles of the body, the emotional field, the family, the self, the tribe, humanity, the cosmos, the planet, right? So it's how do we go in those concentric circles? How do we move through them when we're being assaulted?
What's the difference between recreational use of psychedelics and healing use? How is that defined? Or is it not?
I don't know if it's defined. I can just tell you what I think.
Yeah.
Recreational, go for it, man. A little mushroom trip in the forest with your friends, cool. That's great. The biggest difference is set and setting. Right? I think this was established a very long time ago when people were researching this in the beginning before the blackout on psychedelic. Listen, every culture, if you go far back enough, has used these medicines for healing. Okay. So the difference in healing is ceremony. So that's the set, right? Where are you? That's the setting. Where are you and who's leading it? And that's setting. And the set is the mindset or the intention that you're approaching it with. So, right. And so set and setting, right? It works for recreational. Forest is the setting. Mindset is I want to chill with my friends. We want to bond with friends, right? And then healing is like I'm a traumatized, survivor of sexual assault, and I want to know what happened to me and how to heal from that. And
Yeah.
I'm doing it in a safe and guided, contained experience.
It's like I feel like this conversation has so much stigma around it because either you're so for it or you're like, what the hell is that? And like,
Mm.
or you're like young and like in the middle. Cause like the only thing I know about it is that show Nine Perfect Strangers. Have you watched that?
You know what? I've seen like a couple bits and bobs, and it's scary.
It's crazy. I watched that show and I was like, what is going on? And of course it's drama, it's like television, so
Yeah.
it's probably nothing like with the real thing. But it was
Well,
like she was trying to get people to hallucinate their dead ones, and it's like, whoa. And I'm like, is that even possible to do with psychedelics? I don't know.
I think when anything becomes such a zeitgeist,
Yeah.
so part of the zeitgeist that you can do, you can do psychedelics for anything and get any end. So are there going to be people who do psychedelics or who lead psychedelic things that are, not doing it safely? There have been reports of people going to Peru, and once they're down there and they're doing their ceremonies, bad things are happening to them in that space. That can always happen.
But then there's also immense healing. So it's like,
Well, no, I mean, that's really dangerous. You
No,
yeah,
should
in
not,
those
you know?
instances, that is not does not sound like yeah.
no.
Yeah. But I don't want to really talk about that because I think it adds to the fear. Like, this is just like
Mhm.
this is like the universe. Everything is, you can get anything from anything. You can have
Yeah,
a bad
Totally.
experience with anything.
right. So it's interesting because it's a lot of people that I know are experiencing healing, they're experiencing breakthroughs, they're working through depression, they're working through deep traumatic blocks, whether it's child abuse, whether it's PTSD from violence, sexual abuse. People are, yeah, working through, I think, chronic anxiety. I'm hearing use for ADHD, but also just the blanket trauma, right? Like capital T trauma, lowercase t trauma. People have a lot of blocks. I think about how they define trauma as well. I've heard trauma defined as anything less than a nurturing experience,
Mm.
which is like a pretty hardcore definition, and seems somewhat insane, but when there's just, trauma beyond trauma out there that you just, you can't even believe. Separation from God, right? Or separation from highest self or universal love or whatever we want to call it is fundamentally the problem, right? That then that definition of trauma actually fits, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
a totally lovable human being worthy of
Mhm.
love and safety and everything that this, you know, the world has to offer, then I'm I'm in some sort of like a trauma response. I also think it's very much part of the human condition to oscillate between fear and faith, and sometimes I'm more in fear and sometimes I'm more in faith. Sometimes I have the wind at my back spiritually and sometimes I don't. And I have to do a bunch of work, to get what I call like spiritually centered or on the beam, or right side. And I think my point has to do with how interesting it is. I'm seeing people I have a growth mindset. I see my blocks clearly. I see things that I want to unblock. I'm also sober. I got sober when I was 24 years old, and 12-step program was very instrumental in getting me sober. And my sobriety, I would say the two most important things that have happened to me in my life are getting sober and having kids. And getting sober, it created the floor under my feet. It's like before I got sober, like I didn't have a foundation, I was just wilding out through life, just addiction over here, addiction there, and then now I realized they were all sort of addiction, that I was just going to all of them for love, basically, right? But like, it's sort of, I have a mantra for myself that I've developed over these years, which is as long as I stay sober, everything will be okay. Even if, and so I'm really interested in this kind of journeys and expansion, but I'm also, as a self-identified addict, I'm sort of addicted to expansion. And I love leaving the real normal world. I consider a lot of my spiritual malady to be sort of this a- aversion to regular life. I want life to be magic, you know? And so what I'm afraid of is like, I need regular life to be magic, not this other place. So I've said a lot of things and I would love to hear your experience because you know a lot of people in this space. I said a lot of stuff and I was such a monologue and I was so self-conscious, but it is a nuanced conversation. So I want to get it out right.
There's no right and wrong.
Not right, but like I want to be specific and careful with the way that I talk about it because it is nuanced. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot that you said. The thing that is really coming to me is that for me, the medicine has been a journey of remembering that the everyday and the everything is magic. So that is, those moments of expansion. We've had a lot of focus in media around how it's about healing, and in that it goes into the specific instances of how it's about healing. And of course it does that. I've had profound healing in my relationship. But let me talk about how I see what the medicine is and the ways that it heals, because I think that it shines a light on, this extraordinary, ordinary piece.
I like that.
Which is that the one layer that the medicines, especially plant medicines, MDMA does come from sassafras, which is an indigenous medicine that was used right here in the Hudson Valley. If we talk about the plant medicines in particular, is that, they work on 3 levels. One is the body, so physical healing. You can often, I've heard of people, miraculous things like, oh my God, the tumor shrank, and ordinary things like the medicines, like what's happening? Maybe you need to get some little checkup around the inflammation in your joints. Right. Or I'm feeling better. I'm having some gut stuff and it's been pointed out to me. So there's the physical stuff, right? And then it's your self-concept. And in the medicine, your self-concept and your personal life and your emotional field is informed by your ancestors all the way back, the human, the non-human, the wind, the trees, all the way back. So you get to see in the medicine or feel in the medicine what needs to be felt and what needs to be seen for you to heal. And the third aspect that it works on is your relationship with the collective consciousness, with God, with spirit. And that relationship is almost always healed by realizing you're perfect just as you are. And the divinity within you is the divinity from above. And that you and the trees and the mushrooms and the creepy crawlies and everything are related. And in fact, my teachers, I had a ceremony recently with teachers from the Amazon who were a tribe of 200, had almost been wiped out by the rubber tappers. And because of their prophecies and their medicines are now up to 2,000 and are guardians of huge millions of acres of the Amazon. And they really believe that ayahuasca, which is a vine, it's growing. Their prophecy is that it will grow to the world to bring healing because our earth and the jungle, the Amazon, is suffering so much. And without our mother, we'll all be lost. And so we need to wake up to that consciousness.
That is a powerful message for sure.
And our mother is the earth.
Yeah.
Our mother is the earth, she's our first mother. And I will say those are some of the deepest. Of course, when you get repressed memories come up, and when you see your ancestral trauma, it's very healing. But for me, at least, the biggest healing has been in remembering who I really am and what I really belong to, and that I'm just simply a vessel.
I think also the nature connection is so important because, like, when I was growing up, like, my mom would be like, replace God with whatever word you want. And, like, for me, it was always the ocean. And, like, it genuinely is a spiritual connection. And, like, I know for other people, it's like the mountains or whatever. So I think that, like, the nature part of that is so compelling because it's like, if you can't connect with nature, I just don't understand how, like, you can live, honestly. Like, I, like, need that in my life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the medicines do that. They tell you right away. Many people's drop-ins are, you're looking at the stars and then it turns into a geometric web. right? And then you can when you sink into the floor, you can feel beneath you, the grass that's holding you up, the soil that's nourishing it all, and how connected we're all one. The indigenous leaders say that, the real suffering is believing that our body ends here. And that's
Well,
what you were saying, Tara. It's the suffering of disconnection.
the definition of ego I've ever heard that helps me is separation from, full stop. So like that I'm different than you, we're that whole concept of like I'm here, I end here and you start over there. Spiritually, it's not true. Although in the zeitgeist psychologically and is like therapy, boundaries, 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 and we need boundaries. But how do boundaries work with the fact that we're all one?
I mean, the
What?
medicine teaches us good boundaries. I have to say that some of the lessons I've had, Rumi said, kick them out of your house, but never out of your heart,
Mm.
right? Never out of your heart. So what is the practice of loving compassion? Because, and the medicine always shows us that basically if you start with harming yourself, then you're harming divinity itself, and then you're harming others. So boundaries are good for, as anything that keeps love and compassion at the top of your practice is good.
The whole concept of self-harm is equal to other harm, I think is really compelling. One of the things your father used to do, Fiona, which was very sweet, is I would talk some shit about myself, right? Like I'd be like, I look like crap. He would be like, please don't talk about my wife that way.
Mm,
And you've been down on yourself. And I've said, please don't talk about my daughter this way.
mm-hmm.
Preach.
Well, Tara, tell me though, but two things. Why are you curious about psychedelics?
Uh-huh.
What about it from a sobriety perspective scares you?
Yeah. I think my own addiction just scares me, period. I've been addicted to drugs and alcohol. I've been addicted to food, addicted to cigarettes, nicotine. We've been addicted to comfort. I'm addicted to comfort and security and money and having things and knowing I'm okay through my physical assets and right. That's an addiction. But substance wise, before that, and then definitely addicted to what they call it, love addiction, right? Like Elizabeth Gilbert's on her
Yep.
tour right now about love
Yeah.
addiction. I certainly qualify. Now I really just think of it as like addicted to whatever the dopamine, serotonin cocktail that you get when you feel like you're in love with somebody. When I've had that cocktail with certain people, I think, oh, this is my answer and I can never lose this person. And now suddenly I'm in trouble because I'm not living on my own balance ball. I'm living if they do this, then I'm okay, which is also called codependency. It's the same thing.
So you mean like you're scared of psychedelics being one of those like dopamine
So I'm
rushes?
scared all of a sudden. I'm afraid of my own desire to think something else is an answer other than just the raw dog of this moment. Like that's what my recovery has been a lot about. It's not over there. It's not him. It's not the money. It's not the outfit. It's not the perfect weight on the scale. It's this exact moment. And one of my favorite sayings that I got in recovery was like, God's address is now. It's not once I do a journey and then I do this and then I do this and then I do this. It's now. Then again, I take SSRIs. I mean, I take a lot of fucking shit. You know what I mean?
All your supplements. She has a basket of supplements, a whole entire basket.
I'm fully in the menopausal industrial complex. HRT for me is essential right now to be an employable member of society. I feel like I just need estrogen and progesterone to be like, we're cool. But then again, what if I don't? What if maybe the universe needs my menopausal rage? Who knows? I don't know. People who don't understand sobriety will be like, well, that's not sober. You're taking something. The rule, I guess, in recovery is if it's prescribed by a doctor for a very specific medical condition, then it's okay. But there's lots of loopholes for this. For instance, I could easily get a doctor to prescribe Xanax for me. However, I know for me, Xanax is no go, not safe. So, we give doctors so much we put them on a pedestal and we make them the arbiters of what's okay, but a lot of times they don't know what's okay. So at the end of the day, it really is my own relationship to the truth that tells me what's okay, because I can find a doctor to prescribe me anything I want. The problem comes when it's like, I'm having a bad day, I'm really upset, I think I'm going to have some fill in the blank. Why would I want to use it? Because I had a very traumatic childhood. And I had profound abandonment by my mother when I was 3 years old. She had a psychotic break. She smoked a joint laced with PCP. She was struggling as a single parent, divorced from my father while she was with the boyfriend. And she was never able to take care of us again on a practical level. We visited her, every other weekend. We went on camping trips with her. We visited my mother, but I lived with my father and a succession of stepmothers. And that was also very traumatizing because instead of being with my mother, I was a guest. I was a good girl in my dad's home, trying to get these people and trying to be good enough for these caregivers to stay.
I think the question is that stuff you've tried to heal with sobriety, therapy, XYZ. What makes plant medicine something alluring that doesn't make everything else alluring?
Well, the thing that's like ding, 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 because I've talked to my inner child. I've worked through meditation and prayer. I do know this lovable place inside of me. I can see her. I've talked to my 8-year-old. I've talked to my 4-year-old. I have a relationship with these people, these children in me. Even my inner teenager who is a see you next Tuesday.
Same. Same. When she comes into my journeys, I'm like, hold on. Oh my God, here she is. And she just does this next to me. And I'm like, oh my God, I was having a really relaxing chat with God. And now here you are.
My inner teenager is like, fuck you. And just gives 0 fucks and just wants to burn
Do you
the
think
house
I was worse as a teenager or you, Mom?
I think, you know what? I think we were probably very, very similar. But my stepmother was just so strict.
That you couldn't actually
It
rebel?
was so repressed and it was that was not what I grew up with. She wanted me to be this Puritan, worker, just to get, so I grew up with this worker, Puritan, do your work, and I really think my relationship to pleasure that's where my trauma is, quite frankly. And I believe
I think it's kind of showing up right here, right?
Yes. Tell me.
It's showing up right here. There is a very puritanical aspect for folks when they talk about psychedelics and they're like, well, that's not doing the work.
Yeah, the work is praying
doing the work.
this moment for God
it's hard. It's grit your teeth.
Here. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that hard.
Sometimes psychedelics are really hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll kick your ass. Ayahuasca is called abuelita, the grandmother. And your grandmother's love is very warm and it's a slap in the face. Right? So it's both. It's hard. It's pleasurable. I think the medicine calls you. I actually really believe that. And I think that as soon as you put it in the frame, not of my healing thing, so this is a thing that I think I'm unique in this, or I don't see a lot of people in this, and that it's heal your trauma, go to a therapist, strive for your own perfection as a human being, strive for that best relationship with your inner child. And I'm visit the sacred.
And what does that mean though?
The sacredness of this life that we're given, the blessing of being alive that we forget in the everyday. And not a single person comes out of a journey and doesn't remember that their calling is to serve humanity. Now, some of them become Proud Boys because that's
how they think they can serve humanity.
Some of them become Elon Musk. So but for me, it's yes, you may have profound healing with your inner child. Is your mother still with us or is she passed?
She's passed. And I wanted to loop on this, which was when you said ancestors and tribe. I think this podcast is called Legacy of Love. I want to have an intergenerational, very open conversation with my kid, wise elders and everything in between, right? So we have an artifact, we have something, we have a legacy, what have we learned on our time here and how can we share it and how can we talk about it and how can we expand on it? So the point is, I think that as a society, we're very individual, family, and then it's society, and this whole concept of this in between space of your tribe and your ancestors. I'm like, what is that? I want to know what that is.
Yeah, that's the absolute. I mean, in one of my very first journeys, this was ayahuasca. I'm on a boat with people. I don't know who they are, and then I realized they're my ancestors from I don't know when. And they're very clearly telling me, they're like, you're continuing. I'm getting chills thinking about it because it was so profound to me that I was continuing the journey and the mission of our ancestors, which is that we're explorers. We don't have a nation. Our mission and what we've been doing for centuries is to explore the world. And I'm one part of that. And so I don't need to cling to any identity, to any nation. I don't have to represent anything because I'm continuing the work of my ancestors.
Wow. So
And I've seen my ancestor, my mother comes to me all the time, which is so profound for me to be able to see her not bogged down. I'm seeing her soul. That's who I'm meeting with, is her soul. So she's not in this human shape and form of everything that she was, her own traumas. Once they become ancestors, it's a whole next level. Of them being able to communicate the real truths to you, of being like, wow, this one is a blip. This one is so short. This one.
So that means
short.
when I'm gone, you can visit me and see me in my true self. That's like cool.
Yeah, no, that is cool.
It's actually very cool. It actually is very cool because I mean,
I feel like you need that, Mom. Like dead ass, you need that. I feel like you need to see your parents' like souls.
I do. I did the Hoffman process and it was amazing. And I talked to them as 12-year-olds. I did. And I cried and I connected with them and I really saw them. I saw them as 12-year-olds. I did.
I mean, I think if you're striving for healing, that's a pause.
Yeah.
Period. Whether it be with psychedelics or anything else, because this is our culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
it's like strive for it.
Because I get really like that pure work. It's like, okay, we figured out this. I fixed this about myself. I fixed this about myself. It's like using color correct or something on a film. It's like, oh, I'm going to touch myself up in a few areas and then I'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Then I won't have to experience the pain and the glory of the human condition. I'll be perfect. And that's an addictive mindset.
Yeah. If you want to access more loving kindness for yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to access forgiveness for places. There are some, of course, MDMA is used specifically for people who have repressed memories. And so you're having flashbacks, you're passing out, all those kinds of things. Of course, therapeutic use. Yes, 100%. And also every one of our cultures have used it as a way to get close to God. In a ceremony.
And I think like by what you're saying, like close to community, which I think is a huge hole in what is going on. And I'm writing an article about it in my class right now because I just feel like everyone at my school is so lonely. Like I just, I see it everywhere. And it's like, I live in Boston. Everyone's my age. Everyone's a college kid. Everyone wants to make friends. And it's just like this digital landscape is really fucking us up. And I feel like those kinds of spaces of healing are so needed for younger generations, but there's a lot of stigma around it, which I think would be good if there was less, so people could be, I was interviewing this guy, specializes in Gen Z marketing, and he was like, because people are so like, embarrassed to be online and stuff, people won't go to like a dating event, but they'll go to like a run club where you like could meet a guy. So I feel there has to be like, some edge in these third spaces for younger people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, because people don't do church anymore. Church is not cool, especially in progressive, liberal Brooklyn. When you talk about God, people look at you like you're like a born again Christian. And I'm like, what are you talking about? God is like my breath in this moment. It's not God. Our day-to-day relationship with God doesn't seem like something we can share with others. It feels very in meditation and it's by yourself. So this thing that Fiona's talking about around community does this type of medicine encourage the we? of it all.
You talking about like getting chills even thinking about that group of people is just like such a special moment that I don't think a lot of people are experiencing.
Yeah. And, you know, they do like ceremony is done with children in the room. It's not a taboo.
Mm.
You know, it is not a taboo. If you go down to Peru or you go down to Brazil, it is a ceremony, right? There's live music, right? People are playing music and it's all about love. And so why would children not be included? You know, the story that they told me that was so beautiful was that they do it at night, right? They start the ceremony at 9 p.m. because at night is when the messengers of the king come. And that's what you experience in your dreams is all the messages. And so when the sun rises, when the king wakes up and he shines a light on everyone, first the water wakes up and the water wakes up and it starts going downstream and it wakes up the roots of the trees. And then the trees, they yawn, they stretch up and their leaves fall. And as their leaves fall, they wake up the wind and that wakes up all of the animals who wake up together then to do their work of the day. And that includes the humans, right? And so it's this like, that's why we gather at night with the
Mm.
fire, right? So that we can be in prayer and meeting the messengers of the king.
This is a vibe.
It is a vibe. And how do you like find these communities? You can't like DM them on Instagram, I don't think. Like how?
Well, some of them you can, you know, I
Okay.
feel like it's crazy. It's become a lot more acceptable, right? To do it. So there's what I have encountered is that there are a couple of different ways. So there's one-on-one work, which is very profound, really beautiful. It's not how I started my journey, but it's very profound. Sitting in a sacred space with just one other person who's your guide, your sitter, your facilitator. And that space is mostly with psilocybin and MDMA, you know, in a 6 or 8 hour journey. Beautiful. And that where you're wearing an eye mask is very well researched. There's lots of funding behind it. This is what the Michael Pollan, et cetera, of the world maps have really been looking at and being able to study. And it's really profound. The ritual and group element is still something that is coming from indigenous cultures or cultures that are not native to our culture widely, right? So Native American communities, there's some controversy here about whether non-native people are allowed or welcome. Everyone that I have encountered says that yes, the medicine is for everybody, but what a tragedy that we are serving the medicine to people who might have colonized us or might have. So there's some healing and forgiveness to do.
And that's so interesting with the ancestor element too. Like if two ancestors in the room aren't people that would want to be in the same room.
We have all been the beheaded and the beheader.
Right.
We have all been the beheader and the beheaded. And that is unfortunately, that's a unifying message. And we see that in ceremony. A profound moment I had was I could feel in a journey the chain around my neck. And I was like, okay, I've been a slave. But then I was both the chain on the neck and the hand holding the chain in the same moment. And that was where this line came to me. We have all been the beheader and the beheaded.
I feel like it keeps bringing up more like global issues that I'm like always thinking about. I feel like so many issues are, well, men had the world for forever and now women had the world, but now why can't we both have the world? But now, especially in like New York City, it's a melting pot and the history comes before the present sometimes. And having that understanding of you're the beheaded and the beheader is, I think, healing for like the globe and like the nations of like everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, though, so to get that message, right, it's the concentric circles. First, you have to heal yourself because the pain you feel of in that moment being the beheader or the beheaded is real, right? So you have to heal that pain because right now you can't take that you can't take that message to someone in Gaza. Right? Because they're on the brink, right? So it's the concentric circles of healing are so important, right? Because it's all real. The harm in the body is real. The harm in the ancestors is real. The harm to the planet is real, right? So you have to, it's all care and love. So you do this work first, then this work, then this work.
Yeah, like you said, Fiona, there's a lot of like with women because everyone's like, now, like, like there's a man crisis and there's a loneliness and men are fucked and we need to help men now. And I know a lot of women are like, who cares? Like, are you kidding me? They've had centuries to figure this out. Like, it's our time.
But like my little brother hasn't had centuries.
I know. And then,
Like
but
he's 17.
that just feels like victim, perpetrator, beheaded, beheader.
Exactly. It's really just about going. I think ascension, that you had said ascension or transcendence. I do think eventually that's what, medicine is about, remembering your oneness.
Mhm.
And I think that is ascension or transcendence or, whatever word you want to use. And can some people get addicted to that? 100%. Sure. And
Addicted
you
to
still
drugs.
shop even though you could get addicted to.
Love the line about like you can shop and not be a shopaholic because like
Yes.
I've grown up with the messaging, both my parents are sober, and it's like you're predisposed to this gene, like you
Yeah.
gotta be careful, which is so true. But I know people in my same position that have never taken a sip of alcohol, have never done anything because they're so scared. And I don't think they're better off, like I now know that I can drink safely, and I mean I'm under 21, but whatever. And like all that
Normally,
stuff.
you can drink.
But like
Yeah.
I'm okay. Like, I'm not scared of it anymore because it's so true. Like, you can't like live in fear of like that kind of
Well,
thing.
you can live in any kind of fear, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. You can live in any kind of fear. I mean, I think it's trickier because of the SSRIs, right? You have to detox for a while. Even and people who have been on them long term, it's not clear if they can really have a full experience.
Wait, so if you're on SRSRIs, I don't know this part of it.
It's because your serotonin receptors are muted somewhat.
Okay.
And so the ability for the plants to reach you is dulled.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they want you off of them. So a family member there's a place in Ibiza they went to called Calm, and they got off of all of their stuff
Mm.
so that they could go do their trip.
I mean, my husband, I'm allowed to share this for him, is sober. And one of the ways he got really, really sober and really clear on his sobriety is in the medicine.
Mm.
And he had 2 journeys a year ago. And that's it. Maybe there'll be another one in the future, maybe not.
Huh.
So
That's awesome.
there's no,
There's no rules.
and medicine is also freedom from rules. It's like your own wisdom. It's connecting you always with your own wisdom.
Hmm. I
I'm
love that.
excited to see how this world intersects with like traditional medicine world. I think that will be an interesting period of like growth for the medical community.
Well, they're working on getting certain things legalized. I know in Oregon, they've legalized psilocybin for hospice care. And that's the documentary that I'm helping to EP. It's about people who know they're going to die and they use psilocybin. They're terminally ill.
Okay.
So that's really fascinating. But they haven't really approved it for other things because I don't think they can regulate the dosage. It's one of the issues. I'm sure there's a million issues and you probably know so much more, but I feel like we need to then have our next episode then be with somebody who like someone who knows what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, there are psychiatrists who would be really interesting is that psychiatrists who, I don't know how public they are about it, but are not only advocates of it, but help people get off their SSRIs to get onto the medicine so that they don't have to be on their SSRIs. There is an entire medical field that's very supportive of this. The main issue seems to be the amount of time that this kind of care takes.
Mhm.
A journey is 6-7 hours, and there's a lot of prep. There's prep, ceremony, and integration, right?
So interesting. It's interesting that it's time because time is the most precious commodity.
100%. And people don't have time off work for
It's really like
hours.
insurance and like, how do we do this? And how do we cover? And how do people get paid adequately, right?
Right. So Fiona, we have Samia for just a few more minutes. I mean, I know you want to ask a lot about the film stuff.
Well, I feel like we should end with our like question that we always end with,
Yes.
which is what do you know now that you wish you knew earlier about all of this?
I wish I had the relationship I have with the higher power sooner in my life. I wish that I had that relationship, that trust, the knowledge that my ancestors are right here all the time, that comfort and that trust. I wish that I had, it's funny, my mother talked about it all the time, but I didn't really know it. I didn't know it before, like the way that I know it now. And I don't know. You know, the funny thing about this question is like, would you, if you had known that earlier, would you have been done anything differently? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
You know?
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Might have just done it with less fear.
Maybe. Yeah.
Which would have been better. He would have been
Which
less
would have been
scared.
better. Totally better.
This is amazing. I have so many more questions, but I feel like we should.
Keep it good. Keep it good.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
We worked out a lot of stuff here. You're incredible. I can't wait to hear more about your film
Aw.
and learn more from you about all of this stuff. It's incredible. And I find you so wise
Aw.
and beautiful to listen to. And the way that you articulate these spiritual concepts is really good. Really, really great. Really helpful. Beautiful.
Thank you guys so much. It's so nice to see you two together and to see that you have this, you know, this project that you're working on together to build bridges and to, you know, build in the world, which is exactly what we need.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.